So thank you so much for tuning in. This is Laura from Brown Coat Reviews, and I have a special guest with us. So this is Chris, one of my great friends who also is a fan of Ultimate Comics, and I wanted to talk to him about some of his amazing collections. So Chris, thank you so much for joining me today.
Glad to be here.
Now, Chris, you have been collecting comics for quite a long time. So when did you start reading comics, and then when did you sort of switch over to collecting them?
I read them as a kid. My mom used to, back when they used to put them on a newsstand or on spinner racks in grocery stores, my mom would go shopping somewhere and she'd just leave me by the comic rack and I'd sit there and flip through books, and then she'd always let me bring one or two home.
Mm-hmm.
And then, priorities changed a little bit as I got a little bit older, kind of got out of the comic reading and collecting. And then around 2010, 2009-ish, the MCU was really big. So I was like, hey, I want to read some comics again. So I just Googled best graphic novels of all time and read a bunch of descriptions. And one of the descriptions that caught my eye was the description for Preacher. It just sounded like something I'd be into. So I went on eBay and I found all 9 trades for like $40. I bought them, I got them, and I read all 9 trades in about 2 days because there's still to this day, I've not found anything as entertaining as reading that book. And since then, I've been trying to find other books that are just like it or as good. And then I've also, nostalgia has played a role. I've gone back and got some of the old books that I used to own and as a kid, and first appearances of my favorite characters and things like that. And then just spiraled out of control. Now I have a subscription and I buy all the time. So, but it's been fun.
So did you always get the graphic novels, or were you getting kind of graphic novels and the single issues?
So when I first started back collecting, I was mainly going after trade paperbacks because I could get a big chunk of a story that may have been hard to find the single issues for. Mm-hmm. And I jumped on at the New 52 with DC. That was like the first kind of single issues that I bought. That and Saga, and pretty much all the Image #1s that came out from 2009 to now, I've pretty much gotten just because I really like the indie books. And but yeah, when I first got back into things, I would buy the trade paperbacks. If I liked the trade, then I'd go and search down the run of single issues.
Now, you have some of my absolute favorite runs. So you have the full Spawn run, you have the Sandman run, you have quite a collection that if you ever just need storage, I'll just take it off your hands. It's no problem.
I'll keep that in mind. Yeah.
But the big question is, out of all of the different runs that you have currently, which one's your favorite?
It's got to be Preacher. It was a run that during the time I was putting it together, it wasn't as easy to find. And I got single issues from Wilmington, North Carolina, all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina, searching around for single issues. And I finally put it together, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years ago. But yeah, Preacher is my favorite series of all time and my favorite run that I own. And this is one of my prized possessions here. The glare is kind of bad, but this is Preacher #1, signed both by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. Rest in peace, Steve Dillon. But yeah, this I'll if I ever do sell my collection, that will never leave my possession. I hope my wife will bury it with me.
Now, you of course have quite a collection over your shoulder and on display. Love it. Now, do you go for, just straight up get the A covers? Do you go for some of those exclusive variants? Are you looking for that infamous, 1 in 1,000? Are you looking for the signatures, sketches? when you're grabbing your comic books, which one are you like, I have to have this?
So if I'm just collecting a series, you know, a cover is usually preferred. But there are certain books where, you know, the variant cover just looks really good, right? So I'll get that as long as it's reasonably priced. I do really love signed books. I love going to NC Comic Con and Oak City Comic Con, and you know, meeting the creators, people I admire, and getting to chat with them and have them sign something that they created is really cool to me. So I've got a lot of signed books. And I also have recently, the last couple of cons, I've really gotten into getting blank covers with sketches on them. And I'll show you my favorite one, if I can find it. So this is a Venom sketch that I had done at NC Comic Con. I don't know, whatever the last one we were able to have was, I guess 2 years ago. This is done by Robert Gill. He's not, you know, mega famous or anything, but he's a really good artist. He only charged me $60 for this sketch. And I didn't mind paying him that at all, because he also sketched a Bloodshot for me with the same amount of detail. He did that one for free at a signing at Ultimate Comics a few years ago. I'm really, since then I've bought probably 50 blank covers just for the next con. But I didn't really think about saving money for that. I should probably do that, because they don't do mini sketches for free.
No, you don't get that lucky, sadly.
Yeah. But go ahead.
So, the other question, of course, is you have a lot of amazing key issues. You know, do you try and get every single, you know, first appearance of all characters, or are you looking for certain key issues, or, you know, some of those minor characters or minor keys?
So I mainly will collect runs, and a lot of the runs that I collect have key issues within them. You know, and there are also characters that I really like. You know, we've got Miles Morales, you know, first appearance Miles Morales. I've got a couple of these. Silk, you know, you were speaking about variant covers earlier. This was a variant cover that I really liked, so I got this one. Luckily, I didn't pay today's prices for it. So, yeah, of course, as a comic collector, first appearances are a big deal for me. Most of my runs are independent runs or within the DC publisher. I don't have a whole lot of big runs in Marvel, except for I got Walt Simonson's Thor, and a few little more obscure titles. But I have but most of my first appearance books come from Marvel, just because Marvel's really expensive. So in the secondary market, so putting together full runs with multiple key issues within them is tough to do. But definitely first appearances are, you know, highest on the list. And then I also appreciate just, you know, famous stories, you know, like Chris Claremont's X-Men run. Just about any book from that is going to be an awesome book, you know. Yeah.
Definitely. Now, you also have a very unique perspective, because you worked on the selling side of comic books, but you also very rarely ever sell your comic book collection. So what was your experience on the selling side, and did it kind of give you a bad taste so then you never want to sell your comic books? What happened?
So yeah, I ran an eBay store for a local shop for a little while, and it was basically just kind of helping the guy out, and he traded me books basically to help run his eBay store. And it didn't really sour my taste. It's more of just I really like my things, right? Like, so unless I'm hard up for cash and I need the money, I'd rather have the books, right? I'm not, especially with the way things are going nowadays. I can sell a book today for $10, and then tomorrow it's going to cost me $700 to buy it back. I don't want to have to do that. So if I already got it, I kind of like to hang on to it.
Now, for someone who was just getting into comic book collecting, is there some sort of advice that you would give them for, this is their new hobby? What would you tell them?
Be patient. Don't buy at the peak of the hype, right? I would be patient, and if you really want an old Silver Age or Bronze Age book, buy it when you can afford it, whenever that might be. When you can afford it, go ahead and buy it. But all the modern books that get hot this week, or stay hot for a couple weeks after they're released, just be patient. They'll come back down, and you'll be okay.
Now, even though you've completed some runs, I'm sure you're always working on a new one. So which run are you sort of collecting and keeping an eye out for right now?
That's a great question. There's a few. I would really love to put together a whole run of Invincible. I have a number one, and a couple of random issues, but trying to find those books is not easy. And right now, with the show just releasing, it's a little bit too pricey at the moment. So Invincible is one of them. I would love to be able to put together the original Batman Beyond series. I think this character is going to take off in the near future, and I'd like to complete that run before it happens. But as far as something that I can currently get and hope to accomplish, I really want to put together a full run of the milestone books. So Icon, Hardware, Static, and Blood Syndicate. Static's going to be a little tough. Some of those later issues are really high, but I've got 2 number ones, so I already got a head start. But yeah, I would love to put those together. I was always a fan of Static, because they had a cartoon. I didn't even know the other ones existed until a few months ago, when the people in the K Squad were talking about it. And I've recently been reading those on DC Infinite and really enjoying those stories.
Now, of course, we have our series, which is Married with Comics, where my husband and I will talk about the different stories that we're reading. And now your wife gets involved in comics, but in a little different way. So does she read a lot of stories, or does she do sort of the art side?
She has read, but I wouldn't say she does read. She really likes Saga, and her favorite comic is probably Lock and Key. But those have really been the only 2 that I've been able to convince her to read. I just handed her volume 1 of both of them, and she's like, yeah, give me more of those. But once those were over, I couldn't find anything. But she is an artist, so she paints, she draws, she does crafts, she does a lot of things. So I'm trying to convince her to try to draw on some of my blank covers for me. But she also does some coloring, and a few years ago, DC did some variant covers for coloring books, and she's done a few of those for me. This is my favorite one that she's done. The shading on Joker's jacket is just awesome to me, and I've got about 4 or 5 that she's done, and then I've got maybe 10 more that are blank that I hope she will do one day.
Now, before we wrap up and conclude, sadly, one of my favorite interviews, is there any other comic book items, covers, cool things that you can show us?
Oh yeah, I got all kinds of stuff. You were talking about signed books earlier. Probably my first or second favorite signed book is first Casey Jones, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Raphael. I got this for like $40 10 years ago, and Kevin Eastman signed it at Ultimate Comics at an event. Just an awesome book. And then my second favorite series, not named Preacher, is Saga, which I'm hoping you are enjoying at the moment.
I am.
Where'd it go?
Thank you, of course, for the great recommendation.
And I have this book, and again, it's signed by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. it's in almost perfect condition. I'm thinking about sending this one to get graded because I don't see any flaws on it. But anyway, that's one of my favorites. I've got, you know, First Carnage, First Spider-Gwen, First Iron Fist, a cameo, still a first appearance, First Wolverine, First Punisher, First Venom, and then one I know you'll appreciate,
Yes.
First Deadpool. And one of the things that brings me a lot of joy is being able to find these books for much cheaper than the market value is for them. So yeah, I've got a lot of expensive books, but I have never spent, you know, the most I've spent on books was when I bought the Spawn collection. But anyway, I've never spent a whole lot, you know, hundreds and hundreds of dollars on one book. One of my most recent gets was this Batman Adventures 12. I made a trade with Nick over at the Kraken's Horde. I traded him a couple copies of Ultimate Fallout 4 for that. And then, you know, of course, a week after that, Ultimate Fallout 4 skyrocketed. But so did this. So it worked out pretty good. And I didn't have to pay money for a book that I'll never be able to afford. So it was nice. But yeah, I've got books I can show for days. Maybe we can do another interview another day and show some more.
Absolutely. I would love that. Thank you, of course, for your time. And thank you for giving us a glimpse of your comic book collection and for answering so many of our great questions. So
no problem.
Have a wonderful night, and we will be talking again very soon.
All right. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.